Our co-host Wilson is not here with us today, but we're excited to introduce Elias Ek. He's the president of Enspyre, a top B2B marketing company in Taipei, and co-founder of Keego Mobility, a delivery e-bike company. Let's dive into his passion. Hi, everyone. This is Daphne. Welcome to our podcast, ESG Detectives. Today, we're going to talk about his amazing business, e-bike. So tell us about your journey. How do you come to this, e-bike business from a B2B marketing company?
So I think we have to back up all the way to like 2001. My second company that I worked for in Taiwan was a startup called Paceblade. And I was, I think, employee number 3 there or something like that. And employee number 2 was a guy called Philip. So he was the sales guy, I was the marketing guy, and we made tablet PCs. So this is like 10 years before,
Wow.
Apple came out with the iPad, right? And it was an interesting company. We did a lot of very interesting things. Among them, we sold 50 of these tablet PCs to NASA, and they sent 8 of them up to International Space Station.
Wow.
So that was an interesting company to work for. But then when that company was sold, Philip and I both started our own companies. He did his in healthcare tech. And as you just said, I started Enspyre, which is a B2B marketing company. But over the years, we still kept contact. He started a few companies. I helped him with the websites and stuff like that. And then a few years ago, he sold that company, made some good money. And as all true entrepreneurs, as soon as you finish one project, you kind of start looking for something else. And he went with our third co-founder to attend the Taipei Cycle Show. And our third co-founder, Danny, he comes from the bike industry in procurement and production. So Philip and Danny was there, and they kind of noticed very different things because of their different backgrounds. So Philip, who had been in IT, he noticed that most bike companies were still just kind of producing, one saddle and 2 wheels kind of situations. Like there wasn't much technology in there. There wasn't much IoT and stuff like that. And it felt like there's something missing here. And our friend Danny, on the other hand, he just noticed that, at the time, this is, let's say, 4 years ago, the delivery companies was really going like this, right? And he noticed that no one was producing a bike or an e-bike specifically for this market. Like they have all these couriers running around the streets delivering things. How come no one is building a vehicle specifically for them? So these two thoughts came together, and they had the idea that, okay, let's form a company that makes this an IoT connected professional sturdy delivery bike. And then they said, yeah, but we need somebody else on board. We need somebody with marketing experience and so on. So that's where they came and asked me if I wanted to join. And I'm lucky enough that my marketing company doesn't require my full attention. So that means that I have time to volunteer and organize some community events, and also to invest and get involved in new crazy business ideas.
They are smart to help you, right? But since you have extensive marketing experience, how do you attract, your potential clients, to this, especially in the delivery e-bike industry?
So the way we did it was that we first introduced ourselves 2 years ago at the Taipei Cycle Show. It was the first time that we showed up our prototype, and I think the key thing really for us is to be very, very focused. Everything we do is delivery.
Yeah.
So our products are made for delivery, and it's the whole concept about how do we make things best for delivery. And then based on that, we have just kind of been actively contacting people in the delivery industry, and by now 2/3 of the top 16 delivery companies in the world have tested our bikes, and so far all of them have liked the form factor and think it's a good bike. So that's kind of on the sales side, right? In kind of actively reaching out and evangelizing and meeting people in the delivery industry, and LinkedIn, of course, is a huge help there. It's a little bit too bad. I mean, still a lot of people in Taiwan are not really spending much effort on LinkedIn. But for anybody who wants to do something on an international basis, whether it's just promoting yourself for a job or you really should put more effort into LinkedIn. Then, of course, on the marketing side, on an inbound marketing side, I mean, we have put most of our efforts into SEO, search engine optimization, making sure that our website attracts or is, how should I put it, is ranking high for specific keywords. So if you're searching in most countries in Europe, if you're searching for delivery e-bike or best delivery e-bike or delivery e-bike manufacturers, you will find us somewhere at the top there.
Seems like your target market is in Taiwan, right?
No, definitely not. We
okay.
haven't sold a single item in Taiwan yet. No, our target market very much is Europe. And that's for a couple of reasons. The first one is that the European governments are helping to drive a couple of initiatives that might not be the best, most liked policies from the delivery industries, but it's helping us. And the first one is that in most delivery companies now, the people who are actually doing the deliveries are considered freelancers or entrepreneurs. And in a lot of countries that started to be kind of challenged. Is it really right that these companies have to pay insurance and so on for their employees, while the delivery industry doesn't have to, and so on. So in Europe, that has been a lot of debate about that, and there has been some laws kind of that is starting to at least kind of chip away at that gig working kind of economy. So while there hasn't been a wholesale change into, okay, now they all have to be employees, but the trend still is that the delivery companies have to pay more attention to what kind of vehicles, what kind of work environments that and how safe their couriers are. So a professional vehicle kind of becomes part of that mix. The other big trend, which is also driven by the government in many ways, is the emphasis on sustainability and the environment. So the European Union and the governments in Europe are definitely pushing that much more. And again, that's kind of meant, for example, that our partner Uber Eats, they reported last summer on their ambitious goal of having, actually the whole Uber reported on their goal to have their whole fleet, all of the vehicles that drive under the Uber brand will be fossil fuel free by 2040. That's their stated goal. And in some regions, they are already setting the goal for being fossil fuel free by 2030. So that's an ambition goal, right? I mean, there is 5.5 million vehicles that drive under the Uber app.
Wow.
So for those reasons, Europe is kind of our key market.
But how do you think Taiwan can work together with European country and to make this a trend and a policy which the industry can more comfortably participate in?
Well, so far the various government levels in Taiwan hasn't really put much emphasis on this area. I'm hoping very much that we can get there. You know, in 2022, the latest number I have is that in 2022, there were 145,000 couriers in Taiwan. Now, let's say that they drive an average somewhere between 80 to 100 kilometers a day, right? This is way more than a regular commuter, right? So as a group, right, these couriers are really causing a whole lot of CO2 emissions and so on. So it is my hope, and what we are trying to make connections with the appropriate government agencies and politicians and try to say, well, let's work on this. Let's join up with the delivery companies. And, you know, I'm not saying that the e-bike is the best vehicle for all deliveries. Absolutely not. But there are a lot of deliveries that can be done by e-bike, you know, especially in the inner city areas, right?
Yeah, but can you see any new trend, you know, in the e-bike industry? You know, any new technology, you know, will be enhanced?
Well, so like I said, when we started out, no one was really doing anything with IoT, and this is, I would say, is the big areas. You know, and what I mean is, so there's a couple of different levels, right? The first level be just how do you keep track of your bike, and then you might ask yourself, well, how does having a GPS on a bike have to do with sustainability? But a couple of different things. First of all, if you know how much your bike is driving every day, right? That means you can quantify how much CO2 you would be saving compared to if that person was driving a fossil fuel, scooter, for example. So that's like the first thing, keeping track of where they are. The second level of IoT would be for us to keep track of how is the engine doing, how is the motor doing, right? And that has to do with preventive maintenance, right? If we can make sure that the bike is always fit for the road, that means we can keep it on the road longer. That means that the total cost of ownership will be lower. And, you know, because we all know that it's great that we are switching from, let's say, a gas guzzling type of vehicle to an electric of the same. But it's not good enough, right? The first thing is that we need to always use the smallest possible vehicle that we can, right? So if we can switch from a big motorcycle to an e-bike, or even a van to an e-bike, like in Stockholm, for example, we have a plumbing company that was founded on the idea that all their plumbers would come to work every day on an e-bike. Think about it, right? The cliche of the plumber is that they arrive at their work in a van, right?
Yeah,
that's what they've been doing for 100 years. But you know, why does it have to be that way? So this company, for example, when they start a new job, all the heavy stuff will be delivered by a van. Okay. But then as the workers are going and coming to the work site every day, they use an e-bike, right? Which is meaning, so they come there with their tools, the stuff that they personally need and whatever. You know, they are saving lots and lots and lots of emissions by doing it this way. So here you have a bunch of van trips that are being used by the smallest possible vehicle necessary. Okay, so we need to go to the smallest vehicles. Then we need to make sure that that vehicle lasts as long as possible, right? Because, you know, it's not enough to just buy something good and then just replace it all the time just because it's a low quality some. No, we want to keep this thing on the road for as long as possible. And that's where we feel also our bike is built specifically for the total cost of ownership being really low, right? We can use it for a long time. The parts are easily interchangeable, right? So the stuff that needs to be replaced all the time, like brake pads and so on, it can easily be done, right?
So how do you generate revenue if the bike don't it's not damaged, or it lasts that long? So what's your subscription? Are you using subscription model, or how do you generate revenue?
So we sell our products to fleet managers.
Yeah.
The fleet managers are then operating these bikes and in most cases leasing them out either to delivery companies or to the couriers themselves. So we sell the products. Now, there are 30 to 40 million couriers in the world, okay? Yeah. So this is not a small market. And, something like 90% of them are still driving around on a fossil fuel scooters, right?
Yeah.
So what I was saying here is that we have the GPS technology that is keeping track of where we are and how much we're using it. We have the simple IoT that keeps track of where the bike, how it's doing, and when we need to maintain it in order to keep it on the road longer. Then what we are working on, our next bike, will have technologies like cameras in the front and back that will keep track of how we are driving, right? Because if we can help the drivers, we can kind of give them feedback on how they are driving and give the companies feedback on how they are driving, so that they are not cutting people off, they are not out on and causing accidents and things like that. We can also, just like a car, we can do things like a collision avoidance. If you're about to drive into something, we can actually apply brakes, things like that, right? So the bike itself can get smarter.
Is it going to be 5G equipped?
I don't think at this point we know exactly. Right now we're just using regular, really low band SIM cards. I'm not sure if 5G, that's a little bit above my pay grade, so to speak. I don't think we are sending very much data. A lot of that, what we're talking about, the processing has to be done on the bike itself, right? And that's where these type of processing would not have been possible just a few years ago, right? Because we didn't have the technology for it. But yeah, so the cool thing is, I mean, if you think about it, all over the world we have some backlashes because our cities are so car centric. So when we're starting to have more bicycles and more, let's say the stand-up electric scooters and e-bikes and so on, there's a lot of backlash saying, oh, well, these people are driving like crazy and they are actually causing accident and, they're driving into my car and whatever, which to me is a kind of a throwing away the baby with the bathwater kind of situation, right? Like, we actually want more people to choose the lighter, smaller, cleaner vehicles, not continue to assume that the four-wheel car should reign supreme on our roads, right? And for example, then adding more technology to the bikes that can maybe tamper a little bit of this, weaving in and out of, jumping over curbs and whatnot. If we can tamper that behavior just a little bit with technology, especially then for these professionals that, let's face it, they are under time pressure to get from A to B to deliver you those hamburgers, as fast as possible, right? And having that information collected also gives, that the courier can also argue, well, you see, you might think that I took a little bit longer to deliver this, but I did it with, let's say a green line the whole point. I was driving properly. I was driving according to the street rules. You can't expect me to drive faster than this.
Okay. So there's a lot of kind of advocacy and education, right? You also have to kind of communicate with this the consumer, right? This is the right way. I can wait 5 minutes longer for my burger, and I can make the earth greener, something like that. So how do you do the stakeholder engagement, in terms of sustainability in this point?
Yeah, so Keego itself hasn't really gotten into that yet. We're too small, but we're definitely, when we're talking to the delivery companies, we're certainly making this an issue, right? We are discussing it with them and saying, look, you should build this into your app that people can actively choose the cleaner vehicle. You should highlight to them that their products have been delivered in a cleaner way and stuff like that. I think that's very, very important. Consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for greener, sustainable solutions, but only a little bit, And I think this is where not just delivery companies, but everybody, we need to get better at accepting that we can't necessarily have it all. Maybe we have to slow down something somewhere. And I'm not talking much. To get from A to B in most cities, the e-bike is actually the fastest way of getting there. Like we have customers in cities like Paris and New York and so on that says, hands down, they test the e-bike versus a motorcycle and the e-bike will win 100%, right?
Yeah.
But of course, there are in some places, because the top speed of an e-bike is going to be a little bit lower than a motorcycle, that maybe it will take a little bit longer. But on the other hand, then, okay, like in Europe, for example, most couriers today are wearing a backpack where all the food is in, okay?
Yeah,
so you can think about, a courier picks up, again, let's say your burger and your shakes from a restaurant, and they put both the hot and the cold food in the same bag, put it on their back, and then for 20 minutes, it's shake and bake. Right?
Yeah.
It's not good for the courier. I mean, this is not good ergonomics. It's not good for the food, which means that the restaurants don't like it, right? And it's certainly not good for the consumer, which getting, burger, soup when it's arriving. So if you're looking at our bike, for example, we have a rack on the back of the bike and a rack in the front of the bike. So we can have one of these bags being for cold items and one of them being for hot items, for example. We even have some vendors that provide like heated bags so they can be actively heated. So the food will come out of there really warm or whatever. Well, these are things that, because the bike is actually built for transporting 65 kilos of cargo. So that means that we can actually deliver in many ways a better experience than the type of scooters that are mostly used. And I hope that, by promoting these type of extra features, we will be able to get consumers also to get on board and say, okay, we want this.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I haven't mentioned about your company, Keego Mobility.
Keego
right?
Mobility.
So why the name is called Keego?
Anytime you want to start a new company, it's very complicated to come up with a name that you like. I think we just kind of felt like Keego, right? It just sounds good,
Easy to pronounce as well.
Easy to pronounce. Now there is another company in the world that actually existed before us called Keego. They make a water bottle for bicycles, but we're not competing with each other. Last year at Eurobike, we actually met the founder of that company, came up to our booth and introduced himself, and we got some friendly pictures, and we said we should cooperate sometime. We really confuse people.
You are very focused on the bike industry. I know you are entering the bike venture, right, program. So would you like to talk about this?
Yes, I mean, this is a great initiative. It's Anchor Taiwan is organizing it, and they got some really great venture capitalist firms and big bike companies like Giant behind it. And I know they got many applications, and in the end they picked 10 companies from all over the world to be part of it, and Keego is very, very, very proud to get picked. It will give us access to investors. So there is we will have a small booth at the Bike Venture Pavilion at the Taipei Cycle Show. So originally we weren't going to attend the cycle show this year because various reasons, but now we are there, and that's fantastic. And we are also then, they are helping us to introduce us to investors, which is good. As a small company, we will need to raise money to grow. Yeah. And of course, we also get access to some of these large bike companies that could potentially be partners, could potentially be investors. And I mean, the program doesn't officially start until the cycle show, but of course, already now, having announced that we have been picked, that we went through this whole process of elimination, of course, gives us a feather in our cap, right? So we went back and told some of the investors and that we've been talking to, that we've been picked, and they're like, okay, we'll come by. And same thing with some of the customers that. So it's definitely a plus to be picked, that's for sure.
So, how do you, because now the ESG practices, so what kind of advice, you've been doing B2B marketing for a long time, what kind of advice you can give it to them?
Yeah, so for somebody switching from a fossil fuel scooter to an e-bike, you're basically saving 98% of CO2 emissions, right? So there is a big, big, big win in this. And again, we're talking about, tens of millions of people that are out there driving 100 kilometers a day. So there is a lot to win here. The problem is that the old technology, the fossil fuel scooter motorcycle, is so cheap, right? Yeah. So, there's a lot of companies out there that are, they are looking at their bike, they kind of like it, but then they say, I'm sorry, but, I can buy this motorcycle, for so much cheaper. And then we try to, discuss with them and say, well, yeah, that's true. It's cheaper to buy, but over the lifespan of the product, the motorcycle is going to cost you much more. Here in Taiwan, for example, we've spoken to many, many, many couriers, and they spend about 20% of their earnings keeping their fossil fuel scooter on the road. Wow. So you and all the viewers, think about if you had to spend 20% of your salary just commuting to work every day, right? That's a lot. So this is an obstacle, and I think what's happening then is that we have to see new business models coming up where people are, these fleet management companies are popping up. They are, more like, car rental services, and they understand that if they can keep a bike on the road for longer and really manage this bike, they will make more money in the long run. Yeah. Okay. And then using the green bona fides to make that a marketing point, and of course then have to partner with government agencies to promote this. So for example, in Stockholm now, in Sweden, they are starting to form what they call environmental zones 3, which is basically fossil fuel-free areas in the downtown, where if you're driving a fossil fuel vehicle, you're just not, permitted to be there, right? Well, then you have to ask yourself, well, how do we make sure that products and so on will, be able to get delivered to the restaurants and the businesses that are in those zones or whatever? Well, then we cooperate. So I think just last week they had a big conference in Stockholm where companies like us, delivery companies, the vendors that are in these areas and so on, come together and talk about how do we solve this, you know? And I think those are the kind of dialogues that we need to see in every city in the world, right? Like, how do we together make sure that we are maintaining our logistics and so on, while making this transition and becoming much more efficient. And honestly, I think Taiwan honestly is a little bit behind. I mean, you think about like Norway, Sweden, where somewhere between 60 to 90% of all cars are being sold now are electric. I mean, I don't know the percentage specifically for Taiwan, but it's not many percent, right?
I'm driving e-bike myself, right? I think this is it's great, you know, and environmental friendly. I don't feel guilty driving that, right?
No.
So, but have you think about kind of launch it in some industrial park in Taiwan, or you know, because you know maybe there's more focus in those area, can be a green delivery zone, something.
For sure, absolutely. So I've said that we are concentrating in Europe. Now I live here in Taiwan, and I would love to start seeing our blue bikes on the streets of Taiwan. So we're actually negotiating with a couple of different potential distributors right now that we hope is going to become our fleet managers. And you know, so we will target on the delivery companies first and foremost. So again, we will go and knock on the doors of Uber Eats and Food Panda and Lala Move and so on, and talk to them. And I think we will do great things with them. But then for sure, there are adjacent markets, you know, where one could go, and you know, we have the U-bikes in Taiwan, and they are fantastic. But what we're starting to see in Europe in many places is that these sharing systems, bike sharing systems, that they convert maybe a small percentage, let's say 5 or 10% of their bikes into cargo bikes, right? So that when you need to go to Costco or Carrefour and you do your 2-week shopping, or you get your big bags of rice, yes, then you can use your app to specifically find, you know, the vehicle with the bigger boxes, right? And that's something we don't have yet.
Convenient. Yes.
So that has not happened here yet. You know, I would love to see that, let's say the U-bike system would accommodate that, because that would mean that, you know, I mean, if you want to go and do some bigger shopping today, you kind of feel like you kind of need to have a car, or you take a taxi, right? But you know, again, why couldn't you just go and use your app to find, maybe I have to walk 1 block more, I find, you know, a cargo bike with a bigger cargo capacity, I'm choosing this one for this particular trip.
Okay, you are talking you know, about my thought. I was thinking about to go to Costco today, but I was struggling. I do not have a bike to put together so much a big basket, right? With yeah, so maybe the U-bike rental, you know, for cargo mobility, that will be a good idea. Keego Mobility, that will be a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Giant runs the U-bike system. They are one of the people, the companies behind the bike ventures. So who knows? Maybe we can you know, knock on their door during this program and have a conversation about that.
We're gonna record it and then send it to Giant and the other company, you know, tell them, you know, how wonderful this program gonna be and make our Earth greener. So tell us, what's your next venture? Because you've been a startup entrepreneur for so many years. So what's your next? And what's your advice to other entrepreneurs?
Well, as you know, I wrote a book called How to Start a Business in Taiwan. And I have, for many years, I've been the co-organizer of an event called Dragon's Chamber Taiwan, which is a pitch event specifically for immigrant entrepreneurs. So, you know, this is really my life, to be being an entrepreneur and helping entrepreneurs. What my next venture will be, I really couldn't tell you. Things tend to kind of land in my lap, so to speak, like Keego did. Currently, I'm very concentrated on Keego. Now I have investments in other EV related companies. For example, Paka Electric is a company based here in Taiwan. They make a dirt bike, an electric dirt bike for the US market. I have an investment in a company called Nimnet, which builds charging stations for heavy traffic in Sweden. And so on. So I mean, I'm really enjoying the fact that I kind of have a few fingers here in different places in the electrification of our transportation system. But okay, you're asking about advice for entrepreneurial minded people. And I would say the first thing is don't be a entrepreneur. A entrepreneur is a phrase about those people. I meet quite a few of them that kind of year after year after year, I meet them and they kind of say, oh, I really like what you know, it's so great that you've being an entrepreneur. I would like to start something, but I can't right now. And then I meet them the next year and it's the same and it's the same, it's the same. And I think that's a little bit soul destroying. I think we should kind of, you know, act on it and do it or move on to another dream. And you know, you don't have to start something big the first time you do it, right? You could start by just trading something small on a you know, Wix website or Shopify or Amazon or whatever, right? You can start by buying and selling something. You can go to, you know, flea markets, or you can, I mean, there's so many things you can do that is small, but it kind of gets you into the groove of thinking about opportunities. And you know, my very first venture into entrepreneurship was when I was 15 years old, and I have this idea about maybe people would like to have fresh bread for their breakfast every morning. So I made a deal with bakeries, and I was already delivering newspapers in the morning. So you know, it was easy for me to kind of delivering bread. So that's what I did. And unfortunately, when I tried to make that bigger and I spoke to other people, you know, there were people all around me who were telling me that, you know, don't do this, stay in school, you know, whatever. And I know that if I had said that I wanted to be an artist or a sculptor or something like that, you know, no one would have been shooting me down. But the environment at that time wasn't quite open for entrepreneurship in Sweden. Not by a 15-year-old kid with spiky hair, at least. So I would say that is also something. Don't shoot down other people's dreams.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your dream, and I hope, you know, the other entrepreneur will follow their own dream and make their dream come true.